Once upon a time in a small village, there lived a kind-hearted grandmother. She was very poor and lived in a little hut. But although she had very little to give, she was always willing to help anyone in need. Every morning, she would sit outside her hut and feed the birds with the small handful of grains she could spare. All the birds in the village loved her, but there was one pigeon that came every single day. The grandmother grew very fond of that pigeon and often spoke to it as if it were her own child. But one day, the pigeon didn't come. The grandmother felt worried, but she continued with her daily routine. To her surprise, late in the evening, the pigeon returned, and in its beak, it held something shiny. It dropped the object at the grandmother's feet and flew away. To her surprise, it was a golden coin. The grandmother was shocked, but she knew the coin must have come from the king's palace nearby. Maybe someone had lost it, and the pigeon had found it and brought it back. The next day, the grandmother went to the market to buy some bread. When she reached the counter, she placed the coin on it and said, "This is all I have. Please give me some bread." The shopkeeper looked at the coin and said, "My goodness, this is a king's ransom. You can have all the bread you want." And so the poor grandmother, who had never been able to buy even a loaf of bread before, now had enough money to buy everything she needed. From that day on, every time the pigeon visited, it dropped a golden coin at her feet. Soon, the grandmother's hut was filled with golden coins, and she was no longer poor. But she didn't become greedy or selfish. Instead, she used her money to help the orphans in the village, feed the hungry, and repair the broken houses. The villagers loved her even more because of her generosity. One morning, the pigeon flew down and landed on the windowsill of the grandmother's hut. It cooed loudly, then flew up to the sky and, as if showing her something, flew back and forth between the clouds. The grandmother, puzzled by the pigeon's behavior, decided to follow it. The pigeon led her to a strange-looking tree at the edge of the forest. Its leaves shimmered like silver, and its fruits sparkled like diamonds. To her amazement, it was a money tree, where coins grew instead of fruits. The grandmother couldn't believe her eyes. But instead of plucking everything for herself, she took only what she needed and left the rest for others. And so the tree became a blessing for the entire village. Whenever anyone was in need, they would visit the tree with gratitude in their hearts. And the tree would grant them just enough to solve their problems. And that's how the grandmother, the pigeon, and the money tree became a legend in the village. A symbol of kindness, sharing, and miracles. They say, as long as people remained generous and pure-hearted, the pigeon will keep guarding the money tree, and no greedy person will ever misuse its blessings.